Video from my good friends at Inhala.com. Let's talk about serious business. Sleep apnea. Whether you've been diagnosed with it or afraid you have it, I've got the solution. Inhala is here to give you your life back by giving you your breath back. They make it easy to get help for sleep apnea because living without restful sleep is simply no way to live. Inhala gives you a custom-fitted oral appliance that opens your airway so you naturally breathe the way nature intended. The best part is they offer virtual consultations and in-home sleep testing. No overnight stays at a sleep center. Plus, Inhala has all the doctors that you'll need. Appointments are virtual, and it's all covered by your private medical insurance. Inhala does it all, from diagnosis to the delivery. Don't suffer from another sleepless night or daytime fatigue. Visit Inhala.com or call 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA and the number 1. Call now, 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA-1.
This is More Money with economist Steve Moore. Now, Steve Moore.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. We've been talking about how we can make our economy function better for the last hour and a half. And now I am bringing on a guest, and he is a colleague of mine at the Heritage Foundation, where I oftentimes hang my hat. I love Heritage. I love the work that they do. And Jack Spencer is one of the smartest guys I know on American energy policy. I've learned so much from him. He has a new book that was just released this week. And as soon as I heard about it and started reading it, I said, I've got to get Jack on the show because I'm a big believer in nuclear power. And this book is called The Nuclear Revolution, Powering the Next Generation. Fantastic book. And Jack, thanks for joining, first of all.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So there's so much I want to discuss with you on this. So let's get right down to it. I'm going to ask you the big question. Is there a future for nuclear power in this country?
There certainly can be a future for nuclear power in this country. Look, Steve, the bottom line is nuclear power is a great technology. It's safe. It's reliable, something that we don't have a lot of nowadays. And it's been affordable in the past, but affordability really is the last stumbling block that we have for nuclear to really reach its potential. The problem is, though, we've been doing this the same way. We've been trying to subsidize nuclear power into commercial success, and that doesn't work for anything, much less nuclear power. And that's what this book's about. It's about saying, hey, if we want to get a different outcome, let's take a different approach to this.
So nuclear power, I mean, when were the first nuclear power plants built? Probably 40, 50 years ago?
More than that. The first one came online in the late 1950s.
Wow.
And, one of the interesting things, Steve, is that the safety record of those first 10 nuclear power plants is the same as the safety record of the last 10, which is the same as everyone that's built in between, which is no one has ever been injured or hurt or sickened as a result of a radiological release. Yet they cost 5, 6, 7 times as much to build today as they did back then.
And why is that?
It's because of onerous regulation, bad policy, you name it. Everything that artificially inflates the cost of things, nuclear has largely been subject to. And
so, No, sorry, but nuclear power is, I love this term, renewable resource, because it seems to me nuclear power is like the ultimate nuclear renewable resource. It is inexhaustible, right? I mean, atoms, there's no shortage of atoms to be split. And so why is it, Jack, that the left, the green movement in America and around the world wants to shut down nuclear plants when these are, like we all understand, we're going to need a lot more electric power. You talked about this at the Heritage Foundation last week when you gave your excellent talk. You were mentioning the fact that we're going to need a lot more energy. We've got an electric grid system that's overstrained, and so I just cannot understand why the climate change movement is not in favor of nuclear power since it doesn't emit any greenhouse gases.
Well, the good news, I guess, is that they're starting to come around.
Are they?
It became very clear as our power grid took on more and more wind and solar that just wasn't going to cut it, and we started to see this, real threats of brownouts and blackouts. The fact is, wind and solar is not going to power a modern industrialized economy, and the only option, therefore, would be nuclear power. The problem is that even though the left and some of the green movement has started to come around on nuclear, we're still doing it the same way. We haven't fixed those underlying problems that have caused the price to be so high. And that's what we need to fix. That's where the debate needs to shift, I would argue. I mean, look, I would almost say it's no longer if nuclear power. Everyone, there's broad agreement that we should do nuclear power. The question now has to become how nuclear power.
Yeah. And you made a really good point earlier, Jack, that I want to emphasize that, we've been subsidizing nuclear power for 50 years now. And the lesson that we should have learned from wind and solar power, which we've been also massively subsidizing, is, Moore's rule is that the more you subsidize something, the less efficient it becomes. And I think we've kind of learned that clearly from wind and solar power, but maybe even nuclear has really kind of suffered from too much government involvement.
I mean, the problem is Moore's law is true. Absolutely. But it's more complex than that with nuclear. Okay. You have government policies that, at one point tries to kill nuclear, then they try to bring nuclear back. Sometimes policies trying to kill nuclear and bring it back simultaneously. That we have any nuclear industry at all is testament to the resiliency of the nuclear energy, of our nuclear energy sector. And, so the reason I criticize subsidies so much, because what you say is true. The more you subsidize something, it distorts the economics. We all know how that all leads. And my point is there are things within the system that are causing nuclear to be more expensive than it needs to be. Part of that is political risk. And as I like to point out, the best way to move nuclear away from political risk is to get government out of the way, both being pro-nuclear and anti-nuclear. We just need government to get out of the way and let the nuclear sector do what the nuclear sector does, which is build nuclear power plants.
So the book, I'm talking to Jack Spencer, his new book, which is excellent, and he has a very famous person writing the foreword for that book. I'm just joking, but that is me. I was honored to be asked to write the foreword to the book. And so the book is called The Nuclear Revolution, Powering the Next Generation. So look, I think most of our callers, if not almost all of our callers, would agree with what you're saying, and that there is a future, a very bright future for nuclear energy. But there's always that asterisk, Jack, and that is something that we're all afraid of, which is nuclear accidents. And, we all remember what happened with 3 Mile Island. We saw what happened in Russia, with the nuclear accidents that they had. And so that makes Americans very nervous about having a plant near where they live.
Yeah, well, we should remember what happened at 3 Mile Island and at Fukushima, because what happened there is there were accidents and literally no public health or safety issues arose out of that. If you look at 3 Mile Island, that was a relatively minor accident, though the media certainly portrayed it as something other than minor. Fukushima, now that was a real accident. I mean, we all saw
hold on, that was the one in Japan?
Sid here from my good friends at Inhala.com. Let's talk about serious business. Sleep apnea. Whether you've been diagnosed with it or afraid you have it, I've got the solution. Inhala is here to give you your life back by giving you your breath back. They make it easy to get help for sleep apnea because living without restful sleep is simply no way to live. Inhala gives you a custom-fitted oral appliance that opens your airway so you naturally breathe the way nature intended. The best part is they offer virtual consultations and in-home sleep testing. No overnight stays at a sleep center. Plus, Inhala has all the doctors that you'll need. Appointments are virtual, and it's all covered by your private medical insurance. Inhala does it all, from diagnosis to the delivery. Don't suffer from another sleepless night or daytime fatigue. Visit Inhala.com or call 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA and the number 1. Call now, 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA-1.
This episode is brought to you by Global X. Since 2008, Global X ETFs has been committed to empowering investors with unexplored, intelligent solutions. Global X specializes in exchange-traded funds that offer exposure to the artificial intelligence ecosystem, including themes like data centers, robotics, semiconductors, and cloud computing. To learn more about Global X's entire suite of ETFs, from covered calls, fixed income, emerging markets, and more, visit globalxetfs.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
What do Mattel, Banana Republic, ButcherBox, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet that also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. And that's no industry secret. That's Shopify. Learn more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that we all saw on TV the tops of those buildings blowing up. Still, I can almost not imagine a worse nuclear accident than that. Yet, no one was injured as a result of a radioactive release. The land around Fukushima is largely habitable now. That's not to say, Steve, that there's not always the threat of That's not to say that no accident will ever happen.
Well, what happened, Jack?
Everything.
What happened with Chernobyl?
Well, Chernobyl's a different situation. Yeah. There you had a different technology. You had a bunch of Soviet thugs take the reactor over and run experiments on it that should never have been run. That plant was not built to the same specifications as they are in Western democratic countries. That we just can't compare Chernobyl. But even if you want to look at Chernobyl, Steve, most of the deaths there were in the mid-40s of deaths. Most of those were the result of the Soviet government not telling the first responders that they were going into a highly radioactive area. There were a number of instances of thyroid cancer that occurred in the populations around, almost all of which were resolved favorably. In other words, they didn't die. Now, that's not to diminish that impact, but it's important to keep in mind. We've had hundreds of reactors. Right now, there are 445-ish reactors operating around the world. If you count all of them that have operated in the past, we're probably we're between 600 and 700 that have operated, and that's the safety record. It's flawless, Steve. And you look at almost any other industry, they don't have a safety record like that.
That's a great point. So, Jack, we've only got a minute left. Appreciate it. I'm talking to Jack Spencer from the Heritage Foundation, who has a new book out on nuclear energy. So what do you see? Do you see right now, I think, you know these numbers better than I do, but I think we get about maybe 15% of our electric power today in America from nuclear plants, but we haven't built a lot. What's that?
Yeah. Closer to 20.
20%. Okay. So do you see, I would like to see that number, grow by 50% or maybe even double, and we could use our natural gas, our nuclear power, our oil, even coal. We have clean coal. Why don't we just use all of the above and let the market decide, as we do everything else, which source of energy we use?
We absolutely should. It's important. I criticize in the book nuclear subsidies, but I actually criticize all subsidies.
Right.
We need to get rid of energy subsidies writ large. Steve, you're an economist. If there's a market where there are literally hundreds, if not thousands of suppliers, billions of users, something everyone wants, multiple technologies, it's the perfect market. If ever there was a market government didn't need to intervene in, it's energy markets.
Yes. So, okay, Jack, I got 30 seconds left, and I have to bring you back on the show sometime in the weeks ahead because this is a very serious – I'm going to not do this issue justice, but I just give a quick answer. How vulnerable is our electric grid system? Are we doing enough to maintain, to have enough power on the electric grid to power our country, especially with artificial intelligence coming? Do we have the safety procedures so that, the people can't blow up our electric power? What's the situation? Are you worried about that? Because I am. I
am worried about it, but it's not a challenge we can't meet because most of the problems we have, Steve, are a result of bad policy. It's not a result of not enough energy. It's not a result of inferior infrastructure. This is something that if government gets out of the way, our energy producers can fix.
Jack Spencer, thanks so much for joining us. Get his book, folks. It is fantastic if you want to know the real nuclear power story.
I've been matchmaking all my life. I introduced my best friend and his wife. I introduced my program director, Kevin Drosch, to Inhala. And now I'm going to match you with Inhala. Yes, you two should sleep together. Skip the sleep center, avoid the CPAP machine, get in bed with Inhala. It's a custom-fit oral appliance. There's no bulky hoses or uncomfortable mask. Inhala works with your private medical insurance and makes the process seamless. I talked to the people at Inhala.com, and they're going to help you just like they helped out Kevin and his fiancée. She'll finally be able to sleep through the night while Kevin is using Inhala. Follow Kevin's sleep journey right here on 77 WABC. Now is the time for a treatment that is right for you. Visit Inhala.com or call 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA-1. So like my program director, Kevin, skip the sleep center, avoid the CPAP machine, get in bed with Inhala. Inhala.com, INHALA.com.